Hello, this is your friend, Hayley Crusher Kane, and you're listening to Crusher Talk with Hayley, but you probably already knew that. I am walking on a really pretty morning in Hamtramck, Michigan. It is cloudy, overcast, but very warm and a little bit humid, and it kind of feels tropical right now. Heading back from the coffee shop, just got some delicious cold brew, so I'm feeling like I could probably do this quote-unquote podcast while I walk back to my house. We'll see what happens with the wind and traffic noises, but I feel like with the amount of technology available just in my basic iPhone, I mean, when you really think about it, I record the ideas of songs on my iPhone. I record music video footage on my iPhone. I have recorded podcasts on my iPhone as well as my laptop. And for the most part, it's really just easy and sounds good and looks good and is totally serviceable, especially since the world of content is really based on the idea of being able to consume the content and then just move on or throw it away. That is something that can be a little bit discouraging to people at times, but also I think it's very freeing because you put something out, it's a blog post, it's a podcast, it's a post on social media, and maybe it's B+ content, maybe it's C- content, maybe it's not the best, maybe it's A+ content. Some days we have A+ content that does well. Either way, it's all going to go away very quickly, and with the way that the cycles of attention and media are now, you really get unlimited chances to hit the target. So who knows, maybe I do this podcast, it sounds terrible, and I just do another one immediately because I can. I'm not going to do that. I want to let you guys know that Jewel Case is out today. This is a song that is 10 years in the making, which is a crazy number to me. Not sure why, but the idea of 10 is very uncomfortable to me. I feel like 10 is a number that feels like the completion of something, and I feel like the completion, very much like ending a series you've been watching for a long time, can feel kind of freaky. Like 10 years, 10 years feels like a lot. It's funny, it's one of those things where it's like being 26 years old feels older to me than being 40. I don't know why 26 feels older than 40, but it just does. 26, the number, 26, the life phase of 26, and staring at 30 and being that unsure of your life. That feels older and shittier to me than 40. You know what I mean? Anyways, 10 years. That feels significant. And I'm going to honor that by just talking a little bit about how this new incarnation of Jewel Case came to be. And, just, I think sometimes people are, when I say people, I mean me, but who knows, maybe other people or listeners like yourself have a hard time looking back and feeling that sense of accomplishment. Oftentimes I find artists like me move forward and you make a thing and then you make another thing. Again, like sort of like this whole disposable content economy. There's something very freeing about making something, putting it in the world, and then making more art. As I believe, was it Andy Warhol that said, make art, put it out, and then while they're discussing whether it's good or not, just make more art. I think it was Warhol, but maybe it was somebody else. Where was I going with this? It's hard to look back at times and reflect. So you have to force yourself, certain people anyways. Maybe I'm the odd man out here. But forcing myself to reflect on these 10 years of the band, which technically started in 2016 with our first release, which was, I believe it was Gidget's Revenge EP, which was a cassette tape that we did on beautiful aquamarine pool watercolored cassette. And then later on a beautiful powder pink cassette. So pretty. The photo of that is me, Dr. Kane, and my friend Curtis, because at the time we were in between drummers. You know, that was a lot of foreshadowing for what would happen in the rest of my life with this band. And probably will continue to happen for my entire life. We'll just be waiting for the next drummer. But anyways, Curtis is wearing a luchador mask, as is Dr. Kane. And the concept was, well, we don't really have a drummer, so you guys just wear masks. And it'll create mystery. And we're standing in front of the Elks Lodge pool, which is a pool that is very close to my heart. And as you guys, I'm sure, know, our genre has always and will always be poolside glitter trash. So that was the first thing, 2016. We also put out an album in 2016 called Jewel Case. I don't talk about it very often. In fact, in interviews, people often say Cool Lame is our first record, and I don't correct them on that, because for all intents and purposes, Jewel Case, the album, although the songs are cool, I love the songs, I wouldn't change the songs for the most part, it was not recorded super well. We also hadn't gotten a real handle on the components of our sound and how to balance them. Our band has always had a bit of a dance between this really heavy, fuzzy bass that's very melodic and this bright guitar that can be quite tinny, and sometimes it can be sort of in the background, and other times it's like too much to the forefront because it's like so sharp and so tinny and so trebly. But together, those two components make one awesome thing. And because we started out as a trio, it was important that everything was balanced. And I think, on that first record, Jewel Case, that did not happen. But I will never take it off the internet. I will never disown it, because, as they say, if you're not moving forward, if you're not feeling a little squeamish about your older work, you aren't evolving. We should all look at our work even from 1 year ago and go, I've improved, or I've learned something, or I've gone deeper into it, no matter what the medium. So I am a firm believer in showing your work. I think it's also a great thing for bands to be humble and to show where they've come from. I love to start with a record that gets in my hooks. Maybe let's talk about like Bleached or something. Welcome the Worms is an album that really was a big deal for them and broke them out. Sister duo, female-fronted rock band from LA. But when you go back into their catalog and you listen to Ride Your Heart and some of those older things they did, it's a lot rougher, but it's so them. You can feel the dreaminess, and you can feel the beauty of their vocals together as an act, as a sister kind of thing. You can pick up the references that are going to be kind of coming through the rest of their career. And I think it's really cool to start that way. You start with an input, and that's actually not how I started with that band, but if I had started with something more commercial like Welcome the Worms, I would have been like, oh, I get to go back in time and now see how these people evolved. And I think that's so important for bands and artists, because nobody just comes out fully formed. I always say, nobody comes out fully formed like Kurt Cobain, except maybe Kurt Cobain. But even Kurt Cobain was very interested in creating a specific sonic aesthetic and vibe. He was very interested in practice. He was very interested in being on his bandmates' asses about getting shit done. He was not just some random beautiful creature that popped out of his mother's womb and just was like, I'm here, smells like Teen Spirit, enjoy. That's not how it works. So anyways, Jewel Case is named after the song Jewel Case. So it is the title track of that first album, or as I like to say, our first demo. And that is a song I wrote 10 years ago about an experience that at that time was already at least maybe 5 or 6 years prior to when I even wrote it, around, I believe, 2011, about a girl who I took to a Blasters show at the Brixton, which was a club underneath the pier at the Redondo Beach Pier that no longer exists today. And it was an unusual show for me in the sense that I had just moved back to the Central Coast of California from Long Beach in Los Angeles County, because I was feeling like the people around me were, as my friend Scott, who is Canadian, would say, they were skids. I love this word, skids. It's like basically the Canadian word for burnout. They were burnouts. And the people I was living in this punk house with, which was a notorious punk house in Long Beach where I lived under the stairs. I even had the nickname the Stair Troll because I had rented this space under the stairs for $400. There was enough space for a Black Flag poster and like one little shelving thing and this tiny little bed that was even smaller than even smaller than you would say a single bed. I mean, half that, and then make it even smaller, maybe like a love seat. So I was snuggled up underneath the stairs, and they called me the Stair Troll. And, which was, of course, an ironic nickname because, of course, I was absolutely stunningly beautiful. Because, it's like a fat guy named Tiny. Just kidding. No, I really was a Stair Troll at that time. I had the hair, I had the attitude. I was a troll. I was a Stair Troll. I had just moved from my position as a Stair Troll back to Central Coast of California to get my life together and to figure out what I wanted to do in life. I knew I was hanging around these party people that would go to shows, and it was all about the party, but I wasn't hanging around with people that were creating a lot, and I didn't feel like I was creating a lot, and I wanted to ask more of myself. So when I moved away, it was sort of a self-preservation effort. However, when I moved back to the Central Coast, which I had spent, the first 10 years of my life down in Southern California by the beach, then moved back to the Central Coast from about 9 years old to 15, and then moved back down to LA County again. So I had kind of this bouncing back and forth, but the Central Coast has always felt like a home to me. And at that time, I felt like I was going home to another place. Removed from the chaos of the city and the breakneck speed of which every weekend was like, we're going to go to this bar and this show, and then we're going to go hang out with these people, and we're going to go listen to these records. And it was just always going. I had just finished school and gotten a degree in journalism, and I got a job at the local newspaper in San Luis Obispo County, Central Coast. And I was working first putting the police blotter stuff in the paper. If you don't know what a police blotter is, it's sort of like all of the things that happen, illegal things, bad things that happen in the town. But in these smaller newspapers, it's like drunk person found on the street. Or as I like to say, there was a lot of raccoon-related activity. And inevitably, it would be like raccoon found in elderly woman's garage. The police showed up an hour later and the raccoon was nowhere to be found. That's really the vibe, okay? I'd say the peak of the red light roundup was when I, as a teenager, drove my boyfriend's car, 82 Subaru, into the mayor's fence because I was learning how to drive stick. Maybe that was the pinnacle. And I remember coming to school and my friends that hung out at the wall, we had this special wall we hung out at. They had like pasted it on the wall and we're like, oh my God, they put your name in the paper, even though I was a minor. You're not supposed to put the names of these people in the police blotter, by the way. We called it the red light roundup. That was the name of it at the paper. So I was doing all sorts of, bullshit, entry-level journalism stuff at this paper. All my friends that I had growing up there, I had lost touch with because I had moved to LA County, and I had lost touch with a lot of people, and I was in a different place in my life. And also a lot of people had left. So I'm in the sleepy Central Coast. I didn't have a lot of friends. I felt like I was trying to start over. And this is around the time I started to learn banjo and stuff, and that's a whole other story. But I was like, I need friends. I need people to hang out with. And so I ended up befriending the daughter of a colleague who worked at the desk next to me, who was probably like 20 years older than me. Her daughter was in her 20s. I was in my 20s at the time, early 20s. And she seemed cool. We would go to the local dive bar and do small town shit. Small town dive bar shit. Go play pool, whatever. Go drive around, talk about our lives. And I thought she was really funny and cool. And I instantly adopted her as going to be like my new best friend in the county, in SLO County, because I just didn't know anybody, and I felt lonely, and I wasn't sure about my life, and I was trying to get my shit together. And I think I just relied really a little too much on this person, because every red flag about this girl, I just completely just didn't internalize. And there were red flags from the start, let me tell you that. Starting with her relationship with men and how she was allowing herself to be treated and all sorts of stuff that isn't really about her. I mean, it echoes my own life at the time. So you could say what she was going through was reflecting back to me, my own red flags. But I was like, oh no, I don't want to see that, right? So I was kind of in denial about that. And so after that, hello, good morning. After that, becoming friends with her, in 2011, I don't remember what month it was, but anyways, there was going to be a show down in Redondo Beach at the Brixton. It was going to be the Blasters, which is one of my favorite early LA bands. And I love the early LA scene because you can't really say that any of these bands were like each other. I mean, the Blasters were basically an Americana band that was playing like old time, like boogie woogie rock and roll, like your grandpa's music, 45s, like playing that kind of old timey shit, and speeding it up a bit, and doing it with sort of like a rock punk intention, but a very, very cool seminal band for anyone interested in early LA punk, and especially fans of X or the Knitters or anything that's got a bit of an Americana tinge to it. The Blasters, I believe they also were around the same time as Dwight Yoakam was coming up as well. So very cool band. I was excited to see them. I told my new friend, my new small town friend, let's go down south and go see the show. So she was into it. We drove 4 hours down to Redondo Beach, and pretty much the instant we walked into the show, I lost her just immediately. Of course, this is where it all gets kind of interesting and the song takes off. Basically, I turn around for a second and she hit the ground. That's the lyric. And that's what happened, really. I found her on the ground. I guess she had done like a dozen shots of Jaeger or something with this guy who was like some guy she had literally just met when we walked in. I guess he was like maybe a military guy. I feel like he was he like a sailor or so? In my mind he was a sailor, but that's probably because we were by the ocean. I don't know. Just some guy. So she's on the ground, and the venue, of course, this is a big liability for a venue. They call the ambulance to pick her up, of course. So the band hasn't even, in my recollection, the band hadn't even started yet, but maybe they had just started. And I was like, well, I'm not going to just leave her, or like let her go by herself. She's so far from home. She has nobody here. I'm like, I care about this person. In theory, she's my best friend in theory, my new best friend that I'm forcing into my new best friend role, which made no sense because you don't become best friends that quickly. And I had asked my friend Ed to take me to the hospital, and he did, because he's a good guy, really, really great guy, still proudly party guy. I mean, he's definitely the guy you want to go to any sort of club with. He has the look, he has the swagger, he has the best party favors, And to top it all off, he's just going to pull off his shirt and be wearing bondage gear underneath and be dancing around and doing his thing. So Ed is like the best, and he's still, I mean, he can still party with the best of them. Love Ed. But he drove me to the hospital, and I remember on the way to the hospital, looking at the CDs in his car, and some of them that were more worse for the wear, and the jewel cases that maybe some of the party favors would have touched and been enjoyed off of. And I remember looking at that, and I remember being at the hospital with this girl and having to sleep in the hospital bed with her because I didn't have anywhere to go, and I was really tired, and she had gotten her stomach pumped and was in an IV, and it was actually quite scary at the time. And I was back in this environment that I had just sort of escaped, recently, and had made this decision to leave. And suddenly I was back where I didn't want to be. I mean, I guess it was more subliminal than literal at the time. I wasn't really taking all this in a coherent way because I was just, living my life. But let me tell you, it really affected me. On the way back home, I fully expected her to kind of be like tail between her legs, like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. Sorry, I scared you. I'm never going to do that again. Or at least have some sort of answer for herself. And she really didn't. She kind of couldn't wait to just go out and party all over again. So anyways, about 5 years later, I wrote a song about this experience. And the funny thing is, looking back now 10 years after writing that song, and I realized she was bringing up in me all of my own red flags, all of the things I had done that were unsafe, or things that I had experienced out in the clubs and at the venues, with people I didn't know very well, going off and doing whatever. And I realized, I realize now I was really singing from a place of warning, not just to her or to the audience, but to myself, which is what is so magical about music sometimes, is that it can warn you and talk to you from a place that is so primal that you just don't even realize. Like, a lot of artists will say things like that. And I know for myself, in Modern Adult Kicks, there's a lot of songs about sobriety, and look at me now, I'm like 3 years off alcohol. So it's just interesting how art can play that role in our lives. And for that song, it really was closing that chapter of my life and saying, the people in my life that are meant to be will stay, and the people that are crazy will be crazy. And that girl and I went on to get, matching friendship tattoos. Of course, she got hers on her ankle. I got mine on my wrist. It was St. Patrick's Day, and I think they were doing like a $15 special on tattoos. But that tattoo, as terrible as it is, it's telling me something. Even today, it's telling me, not to attach myself to people that I don't know, not to be codependent, to stand on my own 2 feet, and to notice the warning signs, and to have the self-worth and the self-awareness to put myself in better positions. So that song has a lot of meaning for me, and it just happened to be a dynamic song to play live. And so that's the song we've ended every set with for many, many years. Not the entire 10-year trajectory of the Crushers, but for many, many years. I mean, I can't remember the last time we didn't end with that song. So to see it come to a new place and be a new version of that song, as I'm a new version of myself, and I'm in a new version of the Crushers with new band members who helped me to create this version of the song, is very special to me. So I want to thank Ryan DeLiso, who recorded the vocals and instruments for the song, which is something we normally, kind of split up between LA and Detroit. And this was full Detroit effort. So I want to just give credit to the fact that we were able to do this on our own 2 feet in a very DIY way. Of course, it was mixed and lovingly handled by John Miller at Kitten Robot Studios in LA. But it really was a Detroit effort, and an effort of faith to go, well, let's just see how we do it. Let's see if we can make it happen. So it kind of is a time capsule of our time here in Detroit, this version of the song 10 years later. I want to thank Gabe Masick, who played the drums on this song and did an incredible job, not only on this song recording wise, but every night that we played with Gabe, he would finish really strong with this song. Really killed it. Dr. Kane, my husband, Reed Kane, of course, who in 2016 was like, can I be in your band? When I had wanted it to be an all-female band, and the girls left with each other. They fell in love with each other and left me by myself. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm supposed to have this all-girl band. And my husband has to go, who I'd just been married to for a few years, goes, I could play, and I could play bass. He'd never played bass in his life. So I want to thank my husband, Dr. Kane, for being so wildly confident. He picked up the bass and played it like a guitar, and the rest is history. All of these melodies in the band, counter melodies, and just the melodies running through this band are so much about his spontaneity and just creating the coolest bass lines ever. So for his support and to continually, keep going from that demo period on. We did do a live version of this song in the basement in Detroit with Ryan, and that is a vinyl exclusive that's on our Unsubscribe from the Underground EP vinyl exclusive release. So if you have that record on green vinyl, then you're very lucky, because that's a song we'll never put out. It's a great version of it, and we wanted to kind of show the live version of this band. But this version that's coming out today is really the studio version that I've always wanted, and it's kind of the incarnation of the band I always foresaw. I also think it just showcases how we sound live in a room, just with a little bit more bells and whistles and a little bit more gloss than an actual live track, which nobody really wants to listen to a live track. It's fun as a novelty, but we're not listening to live Jimi Hendrix records, are we? Really? I don't think so. So basically, this 2026 version is the final version of Jewel Case. There are 3 that exist in the world. I hope you enjoy it. The music video is out as well. Please stream the song everywhere. Please share it with friends. And yeah, until next time, sparkle hard and don't do anything I wouldn't have done in my early 20s. All right, I'll talk to you next week. Bye.